Hey everyone, welcome to Tech and Real Estate live stream, where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. And today we have Marc Oshiro, the financial firefighter, as our special guest for buy box speedy analysis. Hey Marc,
Hi, good morning.
great to see
Thanks.
you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I get to see you 2 days in a row. I
I
feel
know
special.
I'm trying to get situated now that I'm not used to being on the guest side of things, but this is interesting.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we're going to dive into your background and more, but first, I'm going to share my screen here just to go over a few housekeeping items. Awesome. So usually if you're new to this live stream, we start off by just quickly going on, touching what's going on in my world, and then we're going to get into the buy box deep dive. Feel free to ask any questions you may have. All newbie questions are encouraged. We're going to go into the detail of why a buy box is important, how Marc structures his, and even go into some properties to see how do we use our buy box to quickly analyze a deal. So what's going on in my world? I'm currently working on the Return to Leads guideline, having a webinar on Tuesday to talk about new lead generation strategies. And we'll have a well-defined documentation. So if you want to replicate these same types of leads, you can as well. Data-Driven Investors Guide, this is the last week for it to be on pre-sale. It will be released next Wednesday. And personal, Hurricane Milton has officially left and is now in the Atlantic area. I personally left Tampa, so I've been in Fort Lauderdale area. And some people may ask if you've ever been, say, in a hurricane before, like, what do you do if you have evacuated and you're just kind of waiting for a storm? So one of the things typically you're doing is seeing where you live. Is there still power? So as I was kind of going through the evening yesterday, saw that in that bottom right, Techco has a map of outages. So we saw that there were some outages happening already in Tampa, as well as in North Tampa. And ultimately, towards the wee hours of the AM, pretty much all of Tampa, about 600K, which may have climbed since, of customers without power. So given that tech and real estate is my main focus in coffee closers, I cannot be without power, which is why I left. But then another question is, if you have properties in Florida and you do leave, what are some ways to kind of see what's happening with your property? Well, Facebook, at least for larger cities, I find to be really good to be able to get a pulse within the community of what's happening. So it seems mostly, at least in the Seminole Heights area, which is about 10 minutes north of downtown Tampa, some of the trees have, start come down, which is why the power lines came down as well. But overall, doesn't look like, there's an outstanding amount of debris everywhere, which is good. And it seems like Tampa, for the most part, got a little bit lucky here because we were north of the storm. But I heard there was a lot of misinformation out there. Just looking at social media briefly, I saw videos that were tagged Tampa and Milton, and they must have been from other years and maybe even other countries. So if you are, have a pulse on looking at the hurricane and the results, I highly encourage to look at resources like the City of Tampa on Instagram as well. There is a live stream going on that's been for the last 24 hours by 10 Tampa Bay on YouTube. So you can get a pulse of what's happening, and I hope everyone is safe. But with that, we are resuming regular content, and today we're going to be talking about speed buy box analysis with Marc. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, transition back here. And yeah, Marc, super excited to have you here. Would love for you to give a bit of a background of where you are, how long you've been investing, and what your focus is today.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep up with the comments right now, and they're making fun of some shine on my head, but I'm trying to deal with everything. But yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm in Hawaii, so it's early for me right now. It's 5:30 in the morning. But I do invest remotely in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a full-time firefighter. and trying to head down this path of financial freedom and trying to help others, not make a lot of the same mistakes that I made starting my journey. So a lot of that comes down to your buy box and knowing kind of what your market looks like and not getting caught up in all the I guess you would say the shiny new toys, right? Like the short-term rentals and dealing with all type of new type of investment strategy. So I think the buy box is super important for that. So I do have 12 single family homes in Pittsburgh, and I do own real estate in Hawaii, but that was more just kind of, just fell into my lap in a sense where you start with a condo, then buy a primary residence, and never really considered myself an investor or landlord. But Pittsburgh is where I guess you would say my real estate journey has begun.
Wow. So you invest not, a state over, but even like seas over, technically, Pittsburgh and Hawaii. What made you choose Pittsburgh?
Yeah, so I think for me it was my friend was investing in Pittsburgh. So that's how I got started. And I think that's kind of the number one thing to really look for is trying to have boots on the ground or have other people investing in the market that you're looking at. So there's a lot of great markets out there, and for yourself, you're investing remotely in a sense, or you've invested out of your backyard where, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, I guess, in a sense, right? So you want people in that market that can help you out. So I think that's the number one thing is finding people that, you have connections with, or even kind of started ahead of you. So you can kind of piggyback off of their system. So I think that's what's really helped me is my friend started there and I kind of used his system or his blueprint that he already had set up. So that was super helpful for me.
Excellent. And we do have a one-on-one podcast that we did a couple of months back where Marc goes into far more detail about building a team and how that can really help with your journey. But one of the things we want to focus on is the buy box because you can't just drive to each of these properties and go check them out yourself. So for those who are new to real estate, what is the buy box and why do investors use that to help filter on properties?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to define a buy box is kind of just your criteria of what you're looking for. And it really comes down to also what market you're investing in. Some markets, maybe a two-bedroom, one bath is more ideal for the market that you're in. Some markets, three bedrooms, or comes down to square footage. And even like now, like you're talking about the hurricane, I think a lot of people might start looking at elevation, certain areas you might start considering the elevation in the market that you're going to invest in. But basically your buy box is a simple way to really determine if it's better to continue on with this property that comes across in your email or in what you're researching on Zillow or Redfin. So the buy box is just a quick, I would say it shouldn't really take you more than 60 seconds in a sense to really determine if you're going to look further into this property. It's not saying as if I'm going to buy this property. It's more just should I look further into it. I think that's what the easiest way to determine or define what a buy box is.
Excellent. I agree. Being able to just quickly screen a property within 60 seconds based on your defined terms. And you mentioned that after those 60 seconds, you think, well, should I look into this property further? Is that the time of when you're looking at a lot of financials, or is that when you have an agent go see the property to get collect more data?
A little bit of both. I mean, I think initially that first 60 seconds, I mean, it should be where you of the financials for that specific market that you're looking at, right? So your buy box is already, you kind of have these, I guess, predetermined information. So like if I'm looking at this particular zip code, the rent should be commanding this much in that area. So like you're saying, financial wise, it's important, but that's kind of done ahead of time, I guess, in a sense where if this property pops into your email, you already know ahead of time where it's kind of hit this whatever percentage. There's the 1% that we're looking at a couple of years ago, but maybe it's at like 0.7 now. But it's automatically going to be okay. This is going to be this much rent in this zip code. So now, like you're saying, we're going to move further, and whatever your boots on the ground are, whether it's a property manager, whether it's a realtor, whether it's like a family friend, they're going to kind of give you the little more details of this property as far as, and then same thing I talk about making mistakes early. That's the one thing, listing photos and pictures can really not give you the full detail of what the property may look like. Or so I think that's a lot of the issues that I had in the beginning, where I thought these properties might have been a little bit more rent ready, or I didn't realize about parking or streets, I guess, in a sense. So that's super helpful, like you're saying, get someone boots on the ground to give you more information on those type of things.
Agreed. And I've been fooled by too many photos as well. It's very interesting how staging and photos can make some issues disappear.
Yeah, it's like dating, right? You can get fooled by photos.
Exactly. So we have a lot of folks that came in. Hey, Joe. Hey, Lynn. Hey, Ike, Troy. And we will also
Yeah,
get
don't
to
worry.
some of these questions as well.
Yeah, this a lot of the one rental at a time community from the school community. So thanks for stopping by, everyone.
So at this time, we'd love to get a little bit hands-on here and actually open up your market, Mark. We're going to open it up on Zillow, if that's okay, and then start to go through how you would, select your filters on your buy box, and then go into properties. And within, only a couple seconds or 2 minutes, would you pursue the property or not? So
Sure,
here I'm going to
gotta figure
share.
this out though. Let's try and do this.
Yeah, usually I'm on two monitors, but let's rock with one.
Yeah, and usually it's the other person sharing. So
No worries. So here I'm going to filter on Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let's imagine that you decided to do a little bit of house hunting towards end of year, see if some maybe additional properties come on market based on interest rates or based on people trying to get some properties off their books towards end of year. So here I'm in Pittsburgh, and Mark, what would be your first steps here to start filtering down? Because 1,900 properties is a lot to go through.
yeah, so for me, the first is going to be the price, right? I have a certain kind of price range that I'm looking at, and so for me, it's in that, maybe I would say I would put it at like anything below 250. 250 is definitely on the high end, but it's going to be below 250.
Okay, about half now.
Yeah, and then I do, bedroom, bath, 3 bedrooms, and then of course one, yeah, one plus.
And are you doing single family, multifamily, or both?
I originally, I mean, so mine are all single family homes, but now I do look at small multis, but all of
Okay,
mine are single family homes. Yeah.
we'll keep it simple here and say in the scenario you're looking for another single family to add to your
Mhm.
portfolio. Are there any other additional filters before we get to the location part? Any other additional filters up here you would?
I haven't gone on Zillow recently, but is there, I don't know if does it still, you can still do it by zip code, or is there square footage, or
Yeah, there's square footage here.
yeah, so I mean, I would maybe put it at 2000 now, but typically I'm not going to buy that big. It's going to be probably 1200 to at the most 1800, but I just put it at 2000 to see if anything else pops in and whatnot.
As your minimum or as your max?
As the max, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And how would someone know that, right? Like, how would they know what a typical three bed, one bath square footage is for an area?
Yeah, so that's kind of goes back to the whole networking part too, right? I think as far as understanding or knowing, talking to other investors in that market and kind of what they're purchasing, or kind of what is the type of homes in that area that you're looking at. So, like I guess Hawaii, for example, you're buying, there was luxury homes in certain markets, right? So you're buying bigger homes in certain areas, and that's just what you're going to find in those markets. But now I feel like a lot of people are trying to build smaller homes to accommodate the housing shortage. So it also is going to vary. But so for like Pittsburgh, there is a lot of older homes. So you're gonna find, yeah. So the square footage, ideally, and what's unique is you still find a lot of two bedrooms in Pittsburgh. You don't find that like in Hawaii. Those are like they're uncommon and you don't find those anymore. So, but Pittsburgh is really, like I said, it's whatever market you're in, who you're networking with, and kind of what their criteria are also. So that's how you're gonna get an understanding of what properties you're gonna be looking for, or what kind of, I guess, criteria is also, right. And you're also gonna learn. Like I talk about mistakes. I think,
Mhm.
getting started, I always talk about just getting your first property, getting your foot in the door, but you're going to learn a lot from there, right? So I think the number one thing is getting on the property ladder, and then you learn. I mean, because for some people, they want the bigger square footage size because they feel like maybe they're going to have opportunities to do more things with this property. But for myself, because I want to keep things simple and whatnot, even on turnovers, right? When you have tenant turnover, the bigger the property is, you're gonna have to put more in for rehab costs, right? As far as if the bigger the unit, more paint, more flooring, whatnot. So that's other things you have to consider.
That's a great point. Yeah, well, the more square footage, possibly the higher the cost for tenant turnover as well. And since it is Pittsburgh, I know the probably years on properties vary. Do you have a minimum or maximum that you look at
Sorry, what was that for for which
for a
part?
year built?
So that's also tricky for Pittsburgh because there is a lot of older homes. So I feel like I don't put a minimum on it. But that is just something you do have to under the same thing. It goes back to understanding your market, and you that's another hump that sometimes you have to get over, right? You're going to find a lot of homes built in the early 1900s in Pittsburgh, and that's also just where, as far as your networking and people that are going to be viewing these property in person for yourself, that's going to help you out determine a lot of these homes, it says year built like 1920, but when the person goes and looks at it, it's been rehabbed. There's a lot of updates on it. You're making sure there's no knob and tube wiring, things like that. So the
Mhm.
year built, I think, for me in Pittsburgh is not as critical because it is common to find older homes.
Okay, good to know. And now at this stage, do you zoom in on like the map for a particular area, or are you only specific zip codes you're focusing on?
So now, where I'm at now is kind of specific zip codes, and but it also
Mhm.
depends how much time I have. If I maybe have some time to kill in the day, it'll be kind of a wider search and kind of just seeing what's going on in the market and looking at maybe other zip codes and just taking a peek, I guess, what's going on. But if it's kind of limited time, then yeah, it's kind of more maybe three specific zip codes or areas that I'm really kind of looking at, and that's kind of where I like to invest now. And like that's just my bandwidth. There's a lot of great markets, but it's like I just don't have the time to be looking at all these different properties.
Of course, yeah. Even 400 is, we brought it down about a fifth, but it's still a lot of properties to look at. So if you were to help me navigate on this map, am I going more towards the right side, north, or south of the center of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. So I like the north and the south. So
Okay.
there's like Troy Hill area, like is 15212. That's kind of where I would say. So I guess the way I would look at it, the north side is where they're really improving the area.
Okay.
And then the south side, like 15203, is kind of it's popular now, and it's kind of more that city life where it's already kind of developed. A lot of the kind of younger working class people, as far as closer to the city, a little more nightlife, I guess, in a sense, walkability. So it's kind of,
Ooh,
yeah, north and south is kind of the two, I guess, how I would split it up in a sense.
okay. Yeah, good to know. So now let's imagine you have a little more time on your side. So you're like, okay, I'm just gonna look at the map on the left-hand side. We're looking at north and south a bit. Now let's start to look at the properties on the right-hand side. So as I'm starting to scroll, uh, what are some initial thoughts and maybe, yeah, these first three properties that you see here on the right-hand side?
All right, let's see here. So right off the bat, the 3 bedroom, 2 bath, down the 109, that's something I'm going to take a look at and just kind of, scroll through the listing, scroll through the photos,
Mhm.
kind of see what's there, look through the history of it. So a lot of times you can find a lot also in like I guess the pricing history of it. Was it something flipped recently? Did someone just buy it? Were they trying to rent it out? Were they having a hard time renting and that's why they're listing it again? But yeah, I'll take a quick peek at that, kind of get a little more information on that. But that's something definitely, just looking at it right off the bat, the bedroom count, the bath, the square footage is maybe a little bit on the smaller side, but it's definitely something I'd look at. And then I try to get, some street views of it, check out the street, the parking situation, whatnot, because it doesn't look like there's a garage just from that photo. So I'm going to try and see what kind of parking or what it says in the listing, because it might say detached garage, whatnot, and also looking for what type of extra store, if there's any extra storage units available for it. But sorry, my screen's a little small, but yeah, just off that initial photo, it seems like a property that I definitely would look a lot further into.
Okay, we'll dive into this one in just a moment, but I want to ask, so the one next to it, someone who may be brand new to investing may say, "Oh my gosh, a house for $16,000." Like, I would 100% look at this one first. Now, is does that give you any hesitation of when you see a price that low, and if so, why?
So, like you said, I think it also depends maybe where you're living currently. And it might, so like for me, like I was talking about Hawaii, median single family home is $1 million. So when I see that initially before I started investing, I just it'd be like, what is this? Has to be fake, or this is not real. No ways it's 16,000, right? Um, but definitely you start realizing as you start investing, you start realizing there is so many type of these properties out there and available. So I think it also depends where you're at in your journey as far as what other criterias you're going to add to your buy box. So as you kind of get further down the journey, I think these type of properties and how much work that you want to put into it, as far as how much time that you have and how maybe I guess how hands-on you want to be in a sense as far as taking on a rehab project. So for myself, me personally, I don't want to take on that much work. But that's definitely something that a lot of people are going to look at because of the entry point. So it does offer them a lot of flexibility. And as you can see, for 16,000, you can get your foot on the ground or a foot in the door. And then now you have some options as far as, you do have is like I said, it's 4 bedroom count. The square footage size is great. So you probably have a lot of options to like you said, maybe add some sort of extra living space in there as another bath, I guess. So make it, you could maybe split it up. But that's definitely something where, as you get further in your journey, I would say that's definitely something I would, someone that wants to, I guess, have a better return on their investment, right? So those are
Yeah.
the type of properties that are going to give you a better return on your money.
And why later in their journey? So, do you have any reservations of newbies starting off with a property like this?
You know, I can't say personally because I never did that myself as far as a rehab that big, probably that early. But from myself, already trying to be as simple as possible or trying to be, I guess, what you'd say, lazy, there's already so much learning in a sense from just getting kind of a rent ready property or even close to a turnkey property. There's so much learning going on there that to add on trying to take on a big rehab project, it could be challenging. I know a lot of people that have done it, but definitely I think that there's so much to learn just becoming a landlord, I guess, in a sense that adding something like that on your plate early could make you want to quit right away also.
Yeah, especially also being out of state too. Like I've seen when newbies do larger rehab projects, they're either doing where they live in the property for like 2 years, so they do it slowly, or they are very handy already and they're local. Um, where I've seen it
Yes,
like be
definitely. Yeah.
successful. But with that, we're gonna dive into
Yeah.
this property here in just a moment. I'm gonna stop sharing just to see if there's any questions here in the chat.
Yeah, they're still making fun of the shine on my head, and I'm trying to like I tell you, I'm in a new situation. I'm trying to figure out the lightings. I even turned off a light just now, but yeah. So, but we always say that in the firehouse. If you're not being teased, then that means they don't like you. So, I do appreciate everyone stopping by, though.
Uh, yeah, so Troy had a question earlier. How do you handle tenants in hurricane areas? I've been interested in Tampa area for 1.5 years now in terms of investing. The simplest answer would be not to invest in a flood zone. So there are plenty of properties that are away from the beach that aren't in flood zones. They're built in the last 20 years. They're up to standards. The only thing that is a little bit of an issue is the roofs. I feel like the roofs should also be all metal, but that's not a mandatory thing right now. So asphalt could be an issue with hurricanes, but for the tenants themselves, you just want to make sure you check in with them several days ahead of time. If you're self-managing, ask them what their plans are. Do they plan to stay? If they are going to leave, have them put the other wooden boards if you don't have the shutters up, depending on the severity of the storm.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just like even getting your property winterized in a sense, and that's something, investing in Pittsburgh I wasn't too aware of initially. And you just it's just kind of a process, right? You maybe have a checklist that during hurricane season every year, right, you give to your tenants, get them prepared, just like winterizing your property. You kind of go through this checklist and say, okay, letting your tenants know, okay, this time of year is coming up, potential for freezing pipes, whatnot. These are some remedies, or things you can put in place to help with the situation, and just kind of prepare them in a sense, like you're saying.
100%. Freezing pipes is definitely a real thing. Also, making sure that you have salt to put on the driveway so to reduce black ice. But like you said, if you have a checklist, it really helps. And we have a question. How would you look up duplex on Zillow? So actually, let me share my screen quickly again there. That's a great question. So you would have to click multifamily in this scenario, and then you would need to go to more. Yes, I don't have it at this time. To more, and then look for keywords like duplex. For copy closers, we do that on the back end, looking at different keywords like duplex, 2 unit, 2 family, and then label if it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4. But it's just a little bit of extra work you have to do on Zillow's end to do that.
Did you? So, I mean, I just saw this on X. One of my friends who invests, um, in he bought a property in Tampa, I think, or Florida, but he did look at elevation before he purchased that property. Is that something you looked at before you purchased your property there, or in your investments there?
Yeah, I look at the zone as well. So usually that's kind of hand in hand. If usually, or at times, not always. But yes, the properties that I have are elevated. Like one is near like a little small river, the Hillsborough River, but it's like 2 miles out from it, and it's in a higher elevation zone. But another thing to look at is also the trees. So you may know this more, Mark, but there's a retired firefighter out in Tampa who helps now with like tree cutting and stuff. That's his business. And he has said with trees, one of the issues if you don't get them cut is that there's nowhere for the wind to go. So you just have this tree, it's almost like getting hit by the wind, and that's why it's more prone to being to topple. So yeah, that's a strategy as well. Try not to have property so close to trees, and if so, make sure they are getting cut from 6 month to at least like yearly basis.
Yeah, funny. I mean, a little bit different for the islands of Hawaii. So there is, we have hurricane season every year, but the island that I'm on, Oahu, we typically, knock on wood, don't get it as bad as the other islands, because the other islands have certain elevation as far as mountaintops. So a lot of times the hurricane or winds come in, and it seems like it disperses off of those mountains. So Oahu doesn't get it as bad as the other islands. So kind of like you're talking about trees and whatnot. But I mean, yeah, you can't move the mountains or whatnot, but just the island that I'm on, we don't get it as bad as some of the other islands.
I had no idea about that. So, and Troy, do you actually
Yeah,
sleep, Mark?
yeah. Joe V right now is saying I sleep at work probably. So that's the joke. Everyone wants to say I'm gonna because I'm in the firehouse. I'll be sleeping at the fire station, but I do not get that much sleep, but I enjoy a lot of this. So it's fun. I'm as long as you guys keep tuning in and chatting in the comments and whatnot, I enjoy doing this. And that's I'm always grateful. Ariel comes on my channel also too and shares her knowledge and shows coffee clothes and talks about the things that she's working on, like her book and things like that. So it's great connecting with all these people. And I do maybe she was a little too big time at the time, but she didn't introduce herself at the ORAD event in February. But hopefully, we can meet in person in February. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course. This time around, we'll definitely sync. So, yeah, feel free to continue to ask questions. I'll pause in between to make sure we get to them. I'm going to share my screen again so we can dive into that property. So, Mark, I want it to be as if, you were searching for a potential property to invest in and you needed to know quickly, like, can I send this potential property to my agent for me to look at this afternoon? So, really quick analysis here. So what's the first thing you'd start to look at when you click onto the property?
I would just, I'm going to scroll through the photos quickly, kind of just get a great idea of kind of what I'm looking at here, and as far as is this something, kind of, I guess you could say rent ready or rent ready turnkey, or how much work you might need, and if it's updated, dated, whatnot, or so things like that. So you're looking through it quickly. Looks fairly dated for a lot of the fixtures and whatnot. Kind of think I would change a lot of the photos if I was the listing agent, but um, yeah, I mean, just it looks. Whoa, yeah,
On carpet.
that's probably gonna get changed out. Um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely could use some work. I don't think it's a full gut rehab or anything. It's not gonna be something where you're gonna have to do. Uh, yeah, I
Is
mean,
this
I
typical
think
where there's like this whole space available? Pretty big
so.
backyard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so that is another thing that I probably didn't pay too much attention to initially. So that is definitely something that I would look into further now that where I'm at in my journey. So, a lot of times, you're not, I guess for me, I do have some properties that I probably wouldn't buy again if I was, doing this again. And a lot of that has to do with maybe, I guess you could say yard situation, or, what the terrain, I guess, in a sense, right? So it's somewhat on a hill, especially the yard portion. It's sloping. It is, I guess, who's going to be responsible for maintaining it? Are you gonna, it could be a liability if your tenants are going to be taking care of it, because now they're on a hillside trying to maintain this yard. So that's definitely something I would pay attention to a lot more. And then you also bring in you mentioned trees and everything earlier. Just bigger, I guess, yard or space, you typically are going to have probably trees and whatnot in this area. So that's also something you're going to be looking for is how this space, but how much trees are there. And then same thing, I wouldn't say I'm a tree expert now, but even from photos, you can kind of not, I wouldn't say you can determine the age of the tree, but you can kind of tell, I guess, if the bark is very dry, as far as is that tree going to somewhat be an issue, maybe like your sense, or even the proximity, to the structure, right? So these are so many things that, y- y- you know, like I said, hopefully people learn from the mistakes I've made, And now when they're looking at photos, these are the type of things that are popping into their head as far as, oh, that tree actually is fairly close to the structure. If I do, and it's not the end all, right? It's not like, if you do purchase this property, it's something maybe you want to discuss with the seller as far as can it be taken care of, before closing? Is this part of, can we have a credit to take care of this or whatnot? Because you don't want it to become an issue down the road. But these are just other ways, like, you talk about in the transaction process of ways maybe you can get a credit or discount somewhat off the purchase price because, hey, this tree is kind of close, or you have someone look at it, this tree is fairly old, the it's going to be a problem, so these are just other ways that maybe you can get credits or discount off the purchase price. But yeah, just quickly looking at this, I mean, this is definitely something I'll look further, but the roof, whatnot, is probably just from this, it looks like it's going to have to be changed out, and same thing, that's going to be something you're going to discuss with the seller. And I know Frank, old guy REI, he's in the comments, but he likes to try to get that taken care of ahead of time, as far, or in the transaction, right? So it's not something he has to, as far as, deal with down the road. So if he can get a credit for it, and that's also something, you know, maybe not part of the buy box, but I preferably, would want me to, I guess, hire, I guess, in a sense, who's going to take care of it, not let the seller, in a sense, take care of it. I mean, yeah, they can pay for it to have, credit, whatnot, but I would rather have someone that I know or someone that we work with take care of it. Whereas the seller is probably going to try and get it done for the cheapest, payment, I guess, to get it taken care of. So that's something that I would probably try to get done during the transaction, but make sure that I'm the one kind of handling, I guess, who's doing it and whatnot.
Agreed. I've had that pain point before of having the seller make the fix and then uh, afterwards, after close, noticing that there was still an issue with whatever the fix was. So I
Yeah.
recommend getting the credit, at least to start off with. And I think you make some really great points, Mark. So really quickly, just looking at photos, you quickly analyze the inside to see, is this rent ready to the expectations of this area, which you identified like probably still needs a little bit of work beforehand to get it rent ready. Then you also looked at, the outside. What are some things that could be potential concerns? But you outline that even if there's concerns, doesn't mean you have to back away and say, okay, never mind, this property, it's not going to work. Even if there's level of potential issues or things that are concerning, it could still be worthwhile to put that offer and have that conversation with the seller of what can be fixed, right?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, this is just the starting point of it, right? Like we talked about, it's just a quick overview, 60 seconds. Okay, this is something I'm going to look further into, and it fits my price point, my kind of my general criteria that I'm looking at, and now I'm going to dig deeper into it and see if it's worth making an offer on, I guess, in a sense, or at the same time, you can make an offer realizing that you do have options to back out of the transaction, through the inspection process, or but you have in your head kind of what price point I'm willing to offer. And then if they
Yeah.
accept or whatnot, but it just gives you a chance to move forward or even see how willing they are to negotiate, right? So you could come in with a lowball offer or a disrespectful offer, we like to talk about, and just kind of see if the seller is willing to play a little bit, right? And that kind of gives you a kind of, I guess, idea on um, you know, how motivated, I guess, the seller might be willing to sell.
Yeah. Agreed. You start to have that conversation and go from there. And also, you did mention previously that you would look at Google Maps, which where is it on? Because you had mentioned parking is a big thing for you.
Oh yeah, say mistakes, that's just something that I didn't pay attention to that much also, early. Like I said, the photos can, you don't really realize how big of an issue parking can be in some areas. And I think same thing, it's going back to knowing your market, right? Sometimes, street parking and whatnot is very convenient for certain areas, but at the same time, some areas, some markets, it can be challenging to find parking. And And anytime it becomes an issue, you could have a lot of tenant turnover. And what we notice, and I'm sure everyone that out there that has investments, you realize the tenant turnover is where it becomes costly. So if you can keep your tenants in there much longer, that's definitely how you're going to win at this game.
Exactly. Are you seeing the Google Maps that I pulled up? Just want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm showing the right tab.
Yes.
Okay. So at this stage, doesn't look like there's a driveway, but looks like some folks are parking on the street. It's not that busy of a street, and there's some additional space here. Would you feel like comfortable at this stage with this property and what the parking offers?
I would feel comfortable, like you said, that quick, 60-second initial where to move forward on it. And I'm stealing this kind of from Dion Financial Talk, but he definitely recommends getting like your agent or whoever your connections are. Go during maybe a busy time of the day or when people are getting off of work, and kind of get an idea what the parking situation looks like, right? Because right now, yeah, it looks like you're going to find a lot of parking, but this could be when everyone is at work and no one's in the area, right? But so you want to have someone maybe take a look at it at 5 or 6 in the afternoon when everyone's kind of returning from work, in the middle of the week, not on the weekends when people are out and their cars aren't there. So you want to probably take a look at it, at a busy point in the day, and see what kind of challenges someone might have as far as finding parking.
Great point. Different times of days really helps here. So let's finish this property and then we can answer some additional questions. So you've looked at the photos, you've mentally noted a couple things. I know you also mentioned description too. Are you able to see the description from my screen?
Yes. Let's see.
And I'll read out some of the things that catch my attention. Charm and potential usually means that there is some work that is involved.
Hmm.
Um, Floors that flow into dining room, nook. I think they meant to say finished den, so this
Ah,
was
yeah.
spelled
Okay.
incorrectly. So maybe that's why it's not maybe a true 3 bedrooms. We'll have to maybe check that. And then sold as is, some updates and cosmetics.
And that you make a great point. You talk, it may not be a true, like you said, 3 bedroom, I think you said. So one of my properties that is kind of an issue now. So I think, off the top of my head, I think when I did purchase it, it might have been listed as a 3 bedroom. Um, and I guess technically it's a 3 bedroom in a sense, but the third bedroom is a challenge to get to, I guess, in a sense. There's stairs. It's almost like on a third level in a sense, but it's also like, now I know, like, oh, to get furniture up there is going to be super challenging. The property manager said it's kind of a tight area. So yeah, it's a bedroom, but it's also like it's probably no one's probably gonna ever use it as a bedroom. So things like that. So even though it says 3 bedrooms, and that's where it also comes with having boots in the ground or networking, and having an agent that's gonna tell you that no, it's lit. I mean, yeah, it's a bedroom, but it's probably not best used as a bedroom. You're gonna find a lot of agents out there that might just be like, yeah, it's a bedroom, but they're not gonna give you the full details. Yes, it's a bedroom, but it's gonna be difficult for someone to use it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
functionality of it.
yeah.
And that's where I think like house hacking really helps as a first time strategy, like for your first property, because you do live in it for a year and it can help you initially get like your mind frame as well of like, would, this bedroom really be comfortable enough for me to be in? Does it have enough lighting? Does it have, yeah, the space to be able to move in furniture? So I agree with you. You should definitely lean on your agent and experts in your team. But if you would like to kind of get your feet wet before really jumping into real estate full on as just a landlord, house hack could be a great medium ground. So you also mentioned looking at the
I
price
like
history. So I want to pull that up here.
yeah, I think we scrolled past yeah, right there,
Here it
yeah.
is.
Oh, is it? Yeah, yeah.
What's your thoughts on this? Since looks like there's just one single line, and that's for when it listed for sale.
So yeah, that's not very helpful. I would kind of look maybe at also the tax history just to kind of see right below that to kind of see so not so that's the one thing with Pittsburgh. They typically don't do reassessment for your taxes until the property's sold. So that's something else, you want to know about in your market as far as when tax gets reassessed for property taxes, because that can sneak up on a lot of people. Where I believe Texas, Florida, you guys reassess yearly, so the property gets reevaluated every year for the taxes. So Pittsburgh, a lot of times, if you buy it, yeah, your taxes may bump up for that year, but they may not reassess it for a while or until another transaction is done. So those are things you also want to know about your market. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't give too much information from this one. And in some areas, you also got so like Pittsburgh. I didn't really realize too, but there's different taxes. There's school tax. There's a property. So there's one area actually in Pittsburgh. Penn Hills. It's very attractive. It's the rent to price ratio, but they ran into school tax issues. I believe someone embezzled a lot of the funding so now the taxes for the school jumped up, and if you're not familiar with that market, and your agent's not familiar with that specific, I guess, zip code, I guess, in a sense, that can catch you off guard, when these school taxes, because you don't really see it in the property taxes, the listings. The school taxes is something that can just kind of pop up on you after closing, and you're like, holy moly, this taxes just wipes out all my cash flow. So being familiar with taxes in a sense, or other investors, can really be super helpful to kind of give you a better idea what the taxes might be after you close.
100%. That was my mistake with my first house hack. I was like, oh, great. The taxes is like 3K New Jersey for property taxes. And that went up to like, well, yeah, like 8,000 or so. It could really be a big difference in cash flow.
8,000.
Yeah. New Jersey is very expensive with property taxes. Uh, we have a question here from Terry. What mistakes have you learned from that made you permanently adjust your buy box?
Oh man, where do I begin on this one? Actually, I think, I think like you kind of touched on earlier, also though, it's really just getting started though. Getting that first property, because maybe some people don't talk about the mistakes they've made, or share the struggles that they've had, but I think it's pretty certain that we've all made mistakes, and we've all kind of changed along the way, and are improving. And I think that it just comes with it, and you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. But I think the biggest thing is being around other people so you can keep getting better at it. And nobody's buy box is going to really be exactly the same. There's certain things that certain people are looking for, as far as they may want more square footage. They only want 2 bedrooms, or whatnot, but you kind of tailor it to yourself. But for me, it's really having proper boots on the ground, and having people that you work with that are okay with telling you that no, this is not a good property, or in the long run it's gonna cost you money, in a sense, where because even right now, I did buy a few properties that, yeah, they're cash flowing, and they're solid base hits, but like I think we touched on, like, parking. It's going to be a high tenant turnover property, and yes, it cash flows when someone is there, but every time I have a tenant turnover, all that cash flow is going to be gone to kind of get the property rent ready for the next tenant. So yeah, it's a base hit on paper from a cash flow standpoint, but because of the possibly high tenant turnover, because of the parking issues, or the busy, the street being so busy, that's going to be the issue. And like I talked about, maybe the agent, like I said, he wasn't lying to me or anything. It is a solid property. It's just, it would have been better if he probably told me, this street is busy or, whatnot. So I think that's the one thing that's super helpful is having people that are willing to tell you that, this may be a problem over the long haul, I guess, in a sense, as far as tenant turnover and whatnot.
Yes, that's why the team is so critical. I just want to highlight some other comments here. Esther, yes, always check elevation and flood zone. Thank you for mentioning that. And so it seems like at this stage, Mark, you were pretty much thumbs up where this property would be interesting to send over to an agent. Uh, for a property like that, like, are there certain steps you would take to dig into the neighborhood more to understand if that fits your buy box with that as well?
Yeah, it always goes back to your team or your network, right? I mean, using coffee closers and other softwares out there to find, like rent to price ratio, crime data. All these things are super important, but I think it's really what you actually see with your eyes, I guess, in a sense, because a lot of times, yeah, it's good to have an idea about the crime data, right? But a lot of times those can be very misleading as far as are they actually reporting the crimes properly or whatnot, like people talk about, like California, right? I think they implemented, if you I guess steal or shoplift a certain below a certain amount, they don't report it, right? It's not a crime, right? So yes, people are stealing things, but because it's not being reported on the data, it doesn't show up on the crime reports. So that's also something where maybe the data is not fully telling you the story of that particular area. So definitely, like your team, to me, is really where you're going to get an idea, like your property manager or whatever agent you're using, and what they really think about that specific area. I think is super helpful. But definitely you do want to look up like the crime data, economics, population growth. So those are things. But you like I said, we kind of go back to it, but those are kind of things you already know ahead of time going into kind of looking at listings, I guess, in a sense, right? Because and that's kind of why, like we touched on it, like I guess maybe I have 2 to 3 zip codes that I'm kind of looking at, because if you have too many zip codes, it's kind of hard to really for sure have an idea what the rent in this particular zip code is, or what is attracting people to this specific area of the county. So I think that's why having it kind of more streamlined to a certain amount of zip codes makes it easier to know, like, okay, this area has a lot of new tech businesses coming into this area, or healthcare industry. So that's really how you. And so it's like one of those things where you kind of know ahead of time before looking at these properties, and I think that's what makes it super helpful.
Agreed. Yeah, I like to usually follow this journey where it's you start with goal setting, cash flow appreciation, then you go into market, so maybe 3 cities or so and certain neighborhoods in those cities, and then going into property search, so defining your buy box, and into property screening. I feel like this kind of formula helps a little bit more rather than switching, say, market research and property search, because then you can feel a little bit lost as you dig through, potentially 2,000 properties as we saw here on Zillow. But Mark, I
Yeah, it
know
just
we
it
do have a
makes the
hard stop.
process a lot quicker.
Yes, exactly. I know we do have a hard stop, so let's do a real quick speed round, okay? If you're up for it. So I'm gonna just dive down here. Um, we're gonna set home type to exact because I know that's, or sorry, bedroom type to exact. And I'm going to quickly just look at some of these photos here, and I want you to tell me, would you be interested in this property or not? So actually, let me just open this up so you can get a bigger view. This is priced around the same as the other one that we just saw. Looks like there's some sort of hole up here.
Yeah, strange they would put that in there.
Is this, yeah, looking at the photos, I mean, it looks really nice. Looks like turnkey ready, but then we do see this. Are there any hesitations you would have to either continue looking at it and possibly share it with your agent, or yeah, would you move forward at this stage or not to look more on the property?
Yeah,
Just
I would move forward, just right off the bat, pretty much something that I would definitely want to look further into. And yeah, I would send this over to my agent and have him, hey, or hey, her, or whatever you want. But yeah, just kind of give me more information on it, or if you can kind of get a backstory on it. But can we take a quick look at the price? I mean, the history.
history, yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of see. I'm pretty sure it's a flip. I mean, kind of a flip. I would assume that it was probably purchased. Let's see.
Oh, wow, it's been okay, so it doesn't say pending because it was removed and then listed again for sale. So wow, a lot of price
So they,
changes.
yeah.
Ooh,
So it looks like it's been a while. They were trying to rent it, but that was
so
2021. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely look further into it. I would try to have, my agent get more information as far as um if they can get kind of a maybe history of why it's been sitting so long. I mean, maybe if they can get some feedback on, like, you know a lot of times the agents be like, oh, people don't like this and this about the property, or these are the issues that are coming up with people that are looking at it, or so and so, had a pending offer in or whatnot, and it's coming back, whatever issues might come up. But just try to get a better idea, because like you said, it seems like it's been sitting for a while. There's a lot of price reductions, and kind of just get a story behind that. And like we always talk about too, this seller probably is motivated. And then even as far as using like coffee closers or other softwares, maybe you can get better information as far as what type of financing or what type of debt structure the seller has on the property. As far as, maybe they don't have financing on it. Maybe it could be a seller finance option, or maybe, what type of, how much equity they have, or what kind of, maybe if you can get somewhat of an idea of what type of interest rate they have, that it could give you more options. But
right.
definitely it's something I would dig deeper into. And it's been sitting there for a while, so you probably don't have to worry as far as like, oh, this is going to go in the next few days. Where I think you touched on it before when we had our chats before, like when you were buying too, the market was just crazy. You didn't have a lot of time to really put a lot of thought into some things, in a sense, right? So this one, because it's been sitting there, definitely do some research on it and get more information on it.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely looks like it has some sort of story to it. Buyer backed out at some point, but it could still potentially be a good property as it is motivated. Motivation shows to sell as they've had continuous price cuts, still left it on market. So who knows, Mark? Maybe from today's live stream, you've spotted a couple of properties that you could add to your portfolio.
Yeah, yeah. What now that I have my I don't know if people they've been following me, but I finally moved out of my primary residence. And so I'm trying. So maybe people can help me. I mean, I know did you have the hard stop, or I told you that? Because I know initially I did,
Oh,
but
you don't anymore? Okay, good.
not
Yeah.
really. Yeah, yeah. As long as my son doesn't wake up, but I yeah. But I forgot it's fall break. That's why. So he doesn't have school actually today. But yeah, I need help coming up with a name for moving back in with aging parents, to help the boomer generation, I guess. So I'm trying to come up with a reverse house hack name, or so if anyone is in the comment or chat, if you have a name that you think is good for me to use on this type of strategy, I guess you could say. So that's what I'm trying to come up with.
All right. We'll have to think about that one. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely in demand, right? A lot of folks that in that generation looking for some
Yeah.
downsizing as well.
Yeah, that and you also realize how much crap you've collected over the years. Like my moving out, that was the one thing that was like, man, do I really want to move out? I have so much stuff I gotta clean out and get rid of. But It's a lot gonna save me time, I guess. It's just, I don't feel as stressed also. Because a lot of times when I would come to my parents' house, then it's like, oh, can you do this, do this, do this? And then I feel like, oh, I gotta get all of this done. But now that I'm kind of just staying here, it's just like, okay, I have these things that can get done, but because I'm here, it doesn't have to be rushed to take care of it at this moment. So it is helpful though. Uh, multi-gen reunion trade better 99 says. Hmm. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
But I'm still waiting for your video to come out on your YouTube channel, your initial video. So we'll get that started. Yeah.
So are you currently looking to add properties to your portfolio at this time or waiting on the sidelines?
That's a great question. I like to tell people I don't really like real estate. I mean, that's the funny part. I like the wealth building side of it, but there's a lot of people that they love looking at properties every day and they love analyzing deals. And I enjoy it, but I definitely like more quick, the 60-second quick analysis. Okay, this looks good enough. I'm gonna dig deeper into it. But it's, some people are making spreadsheets and they have this whole big formula on what type of properties they're looking at. And that's just not me. But I'm always looking for deals. But right now I definitely realize that I'm in that small and mighty mindset, or, the kind of bigger is not better. And I'm kind of just trying to clean things up, I guess. Like we kind of touched on a little bit, is I made a lot of mistakes, and there's a lot of properties that I probably wouldn't buy again if I was, had the information and knowledge that I do now. Um, like I said, I mean, they're solid properties. I just don't think they're gonna give a greater return down the road that I was probably hoping for. So I'm just maybe trying to reposition myself. And I think people talk about, you're playing chess in a sense. So you have all these pieces on the board, but now, certain pieces you're going to move around, or I guess you could say you're going to sacrifice maybe a certain piece to put your other piece in a better position. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, is kind of cleaning up the portfolio, but put myself in better position to grow. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. So always looking, but definitely looking for better properties in a sense. Or yeah.
Yeah, and it's helped over time. Those mistakes that you have made, they're also learning lessons, right? Like I try to tell folks also, like you could go get a degree in like uh, real estate analysis and analyzing deals, commercial real estate, all of that for 80K, or you could kind of start the process and learn a little bit along the way. Likely, the cost is going to end up being less, being a little bit hands-on. And also, you mentioned a good point that you don't have to be obsessed. It's actually, I think most landlords aren't obsessed with real estate at all. They're looking for alternative ways to achieve financial freedom, and it's one of the methods. So if you're a person who you don't love being in spreadsheets, but you have maybe an eye for liking to look at photos of a property, understand different layouts, and how you can best use of a property, like that in itself, that's a super useful skill. It doesn't have to always be on a spreadsheet analysis side.
Oh, definitely. I do have a favor, maybe. Are you able to block this Joe V guy that's in the chats? He is a troublemaker. He used to be a police officer, so he's just jealous of firefighters for some reason. But he's always just making comments. But actually, he's in an accountability group that I am, and he's just making trouble because I didn't actually give a goal for the week. So I guess I better come out with one. But my
No,
goal actually, yeah, my goal, I guess, for this week is I want to finish at least half of my continuing education for my real estate license. So that's due at the end of the
awesome.
year. Yeah, so I want to finish at least. So there's a 20-hour requirement. As long as I finish 10, I think I'll be in a good spot to finish up by the end of the year.
That's excellent. You're always staying busy with different tasks, and this is actually
Yeah.
a potentially good one for your naming here. Family Reunion Investing, FRI.
Ah, I like that. See, trade better. That's why I bring him on too. Like you trade better. You guys are the smart ones. I just bring like the humor and comedy, I think. So I have to bring smart people on to balance it out. So that's why Harrison's always on, but you guys bring the tech side of it, the information side of it.
I wish I was more witty to come up with naming conventions. I like that one, Family Reunion Investing.
Yeah. But yeah,
So,
I don't know if you can see it, but Chester Wealth Building Journey is in the comments. But he just closed on a turnkey property in Detroit, and he's been looking for like 3 or 4 years. But now he's finding out how we kind of touched on it too. Like you learn so much from just getting your foot in the door, and now he's learning the landlording side, and he's like, oh man, all this paperwork I got to deal with, I gotta get the utilities set started and all these things. So now he's realizing also, like, getting the property is part of it, but becoming a landlord is a whole different part of the game, right? So yeah, it's interesting.
it is. It's a business. Sometimes we don't
So
call ourselves
what
business
about
owners.
you? What about you? Do you love real estate?
Uh, I probably lean towards liking it rather than disliking it, but not like in an obsessive way. Like I'm not talking about real estate with my family, friends, or things outside of tech and real estate and stuff. I like to have like a clear delineation of work related things and also some like side hobby interests, but then also family and everything else. So yeah, I think I was probably even more interested in real estate as an asset and everything earlier on in my journey. And I've been a little bit disappointed in terms of like how prices have gone unaffordable for a lot of folks. And then also like the demonizing of landlords, everyone who's a landlord's evil. So it has its benefits, but there's some drawbacks to it that make you not like be obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the appropriate answer for someone who's talks a lot about real estate, but that's just an honest answer there.
No, I think that is a great answer, because I think, like you're saying, I think, you know, being obsessed with it is maybe where some of the struggles actually come, because you're expecting it to have these certain results, or you want it to happen overnight, or you think you're doing all this research and you've done all your spreadsheets and you've done all your analysis, so it's supposed to work out, or it's supposed to make this much rent, or it's supposed to appreciate this much. But when you kind of have this, I know real estate works, I know these are the benefits, and sometimes there's struggles. Sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. I think that makes it easier to be in real estate and reap the benefits over the long haul, I guess. I think so. I think that's maybe
Yes.
why not being obsessed with it actually is kind of, beneficial in a way.
Couldn't have said it better. That's exactly it, right? Like the metrics that you have in your head, your 30-year projection of a property may not come to fruition, right? There'll be ups and downs, but in the long run, I mean, real estate is one of those few investment vehicles where you can use leverage. So let's get a property a little down, especially if you're doing house hacking or you're doing creative finance strategies and really build wealth. So it is something that's proven and works.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you see Trade Better's he says he loves your focus on the data side, and you
Thank you.
describe it
Appreciate
very
it.
well. Yeah.
I think
Uh,
my love is problem solving, and just so happens that real estate has a lot of problems to solve. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. I always talk about it. I think if I came across coffee closers, earlier in my journey, it would have made things a lot easier and would have taken a lot of the headaches um, out of my journey. But at the same time, what would I be able to help people with? I guess if I didn't make as many mistakes, right? So that's kind of my I guess the my positive spin on it is that I can help people hopefully not make a lot of those mistakes that I've made.
Of course. And I think, you know, going through this exercise today with the buy box, really important because I see newbies at times get so hung up on the financials, which is why like a big part of coffee closers is just to automate most of that piece so you can focus on the rest of it. Like we saw that there were images in the property that maybe there's trees too close. Maybe the space of the den really isn't a true bedroom. Maybe there's more work that needs to be done. These are all things that I see at times newbies just kind of gloss over because the financials look good and then mistakes can happen. So there's a lot more to analyzing a property, which I appreciate so much, Mark, that we've been able to go through that level of detail, even just for an initial property screen.
So yeah, so Joel V actually has a great question because this is what he's struggling with is so do you have a partner and are they on board with investing? Because he's struggling with his partner is the one um I don't know if maybe not seeing the benefits of real estate or just it's not something that they want to get into, I guess. So do you have a partner and are they on board or did you have to convince this person to get on board with you?
Yeah, I'd say he's on board. Initially, just yeah, he doesn't like to be too in the weeds of what I'm looking into, but he's also not really that handy. So as long as it's not like some sort of like flip that we're trying to do or that we're trying to live in, he's pretty much on board and he's very much into convenience. So when we've done our house hacks, he's like, all right, the numbers and all this stuff, it's kind of over my head, or I don't really care enough about the projections for 30 years. But if it's like locally close to things, restaurants, convenience stores, supermarkets, things like that, like I'm in. Um, so I think understanding like the level of depth that your partner wants to be involved, what is important to them, and trying to highlight that you're considering that could help with trying to move forward and doing investing.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
sure why I'm
think
not
that's
seeing
one of the
the comments.
yeah, I don't see the paired ones popping up anymore on your end because it was saying paired initially, but
Yeah.
um the wealth Chester said, oh, I don't know what this would be a great series, he said. I don't know what he's talking about. A series on getting your partner on board? Is that what you're asking, Chester? Or me and Ariel doing more of this type of lives together? I'm not sure what you're asking. But either way, I think it's a great. I love, like I said, Ariel brings the the data and smarts to these lives, and I just bring the humor and having fun with it a little bit. Not saying you're not funny or anything. I'm just saying maybe I'm a little more. That's what I bring. Well, buy box
But
analysis, Chester says. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. That's yeah, the main focus of this live that's only been around for about 6 weeks now is to get in the weeds. So sharing screens, reviewing properties, reviewing deals. And Mark, of course, would always I'll be happy to have you back. And
yeah,
with that, for those who don't currently follow Mark, make sure you do so you can get close to 1,000 subscribers. We're almost there.
yeah. Come on, people. Like Max, who I thought was my friend, who just subscribed. Like after like meeting him in school for like how many weeks, and I just saw his name pop up as subscribing, so I had to give him shit about it. You know, that should have been your goal week one from the accountability group, Max.
Yes,
But
go follow Mark at Financial Fire Dash Fighter. Love the name, and I love this image. You got this done on Fiverr, or who did this for you?
yes, Fiverr. Yeah, yeah. I had a
Very
couple
nice.
uh, um different ones made, but that's the one I picked. But yeah, even though you didn't pick the recommendation for your book that I chose, but everyone out there go check out Ariel's book on Amazon. And when is the actual release date you said again?
It is next Wednesday, and it goes through like these 5 steps that I mentioned for the real estate funnel, and then also how you leverage data, not in like a programming aspect, but like what websites to look at, how to identify different neighborhoods, markets, what to evaluate for a property. Like, we kind of touched on this today, how it's not just about the financials. It's also about looking at value add opportunities, what risks, like those trees that we mentioned, elevation, as well as different exit strategies. So that is on pre-sale now, $2.99 for Kindle, and then next week it will be available as well. And the price will go up a little bit, but it also be on paperback too.
Awesome. And just one other thing. I mean, we did do a lot, like you said earlier, we touched on, I saw you yesterday. Also, we did a live yesterday. But that's another great topic that you brought up that we want to discuss. And maybe you want to just fill everyone in if they want to tune in and go check out the replay of that. But what was the topic on yesterday's live?
Yeah, yesterday's live was return to office leads. So the main pain point I see a lot of investors face is if they're looking off market, they're using the same leads list as everyone else. Where if you don't have a lot of marketing spend to go after, say, pre-foreclosures, divorce leads, etc., your messaging could just get lost in the mix. So if you are going off market, how do you find sellers that may want to sell? And the main topic is return to office and layoffs. Being able to provide a win-win scenario for those that are in large cities, have moved away, but don't have that much equity in their home and have to go back now 5 days a week, for example, Amazon. How do you find these individuals and possibly provide them a solution to sell their home and then in your hand also be able to have a rental? So I'll be going over a webinar on Tuesday, which if you want to learn more information, I can actually put that in the chat here quickly to sign up. But I'll have a step-by-step of how I went through it. So if you want to replicate the leads list as well, you could.
Awesome.
And next week, we will have Elizabeth from Land Sisters to talk about land deals, which this is 100% my weakness when it comes to real estate investing. So I'm really excited to dive into the numbers, learn about how do we even analyze land, what are different strategies with it. So definitely come next week to check it out.
Awesome. I just followed them on Instagram too.
Yeah, they showed up to yesterday's live as
Yeah.
well. They just started creating content, super valuable.
Awesome. Yeah. Hope everyone go check it out. Sign up for the webinar. Go order Ariel's book, and yeah, hopefully she invites me on again.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Anytime. Thanks for having me.